Hello, and welcome to the Create a Life You Love podcast. I'm your host, Chantel Cox. My purpose is to empower and lift up others who know in their heart they're meant for more. More joy, more impact, and more passion. If you're ready to make a radical transformation and create a life that you love, then you have come to the right place. Let's do this. Hello. Welcome everybody to today's episode of the Create a Life You Love video podcast, where we get to connect with people from all over the world to share tips and strategies designed to help you on your journey. I'm your host, Chantel Cox. I'm an author, speaker, transformation neurocoach, and certified life purpose coach who specializes in helping women connect with their unique purpose and permanently removing the blocks that have been holding them back so they can step into their full potential and live an aligned and fulfilling life of impact. Quick reminder, this is being streamed live. So those of you with us, feel free to put any comments or questions in the chat, and we will be sure to get to them as it makes sense in the flow of our conversation. And if you're watching the replay, just interact as if you are watching live and use hashtag replay, and we will respond to you later. And if you are just listening on your favorite podcasting platform and a question comes up, please reach out to us. We would love to connect with you. Okay, I am super excited to be here today with Boomer Perrault. Boomer is an in-person and online health and fitness trainer, helping those who have desk jobs get in shape and live their healthiest lives. He's a certified pain-free performance specialist, TRS Movement and Mobility Specialist, and Precision Nutritionist. Using his own personal experiences of dealing with pain and nearly 10 years of education, Boomer is here to serve others and help them live a healthier and happier life. Hey, Boomer, how are you today?
Doing good. How about yourself, Chantel?
Living the dream. So where are you joining us from?
I am in Connecticut, a medium-sized city, Danbury, more specifically, if anyone knows the area.
Awesome. And is it kind of spring weather there, or are you guys transitioning into warmer?
We definitely are in the typical northeastern spring, so lots of rain, but sprinkled in a few 70-degree days. So we're close to that summer weather. We're right there.
Nice. I can't wait. I'm like, come on, summer.
Yeah, we're getting close.
Good. So tell us a little bit about your journey. How have you created a life that you love?
Yeah, so I wish it was a bit more motivational or a crazy epic story. Unfortunately, it's not, but yeah, I guess it dates back to around 6th or 7th grade. I was always an athlete growing up, most specifically basketball. And around 6th or 7th grade, I started to develop knee pain. And that got progressively worse and worse around 1920 when I stopped playing basketball as much and kind of got to the work field. That knee pain turned into not only knee pain, but hip pain, low back pain, shoulder pain. And eventually at some point or another, one of my joints was always in pain, and I went to a few different physical therapists throughout high school and middle school, and all they could really do was give me short-term, temporary relief. And it got to the point when I was around 21 years old where I pretty much stopped playing basketball and got into fitness. So that's where the fitness part comes in. Because I couldn't play basketball because my knees were so bad. And that was my first true love, basketball. So around that time, when I didn't know as much as I know now, of course, I went to Google. And that's one of the worst things you can do when you're dealing with pain, because, of course, it led me to the decision to at least consider getting this surgery. I don't remember what the exact surgery is called, but they were going to detach my patellar tendon on both my knees and like shave it down and then reattach it. And I went to two different surgeons, and they both were like, yeah, if you want it, sure, we'll do it, no problem. And I was about to do both the surgeries, which wouldn't have helped me at all, by the way.
Oh, no.
And so I just decided to go to one last physical therapist who has worked with multiple Olympic athletes. And I was in his office for maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and he had me, do a couple of lunges and squats. And he was, after just doing a few of them, he was like, dude, like, you don't need surgery. You're just like abnormally tight. And so around like 2021 is when I started lifting. And also when, that first light bulb went off in my head about the whole movement and mobility aspect. When most people, specifically guys, start working out around that teenage, young adult ages, it's all about getting big and looking good for the girls, which is why I started. But that was the first point where I was like, okay, like there's more to this whole exercise thing than just about looks. And I still dealt with, issues throughout most of my 20s. I'm 30 now, so to about 24, 25, 26. But through that time, after working with that physical therapist for a few months, is when I really started to learn on my own and, try different things about, okay, maybe, it's not just about going in the gym and lifting as much as I can, but, working on my hip mobility
Mm.
and that external and internal rotation, which most people don't even know what that means when they're in the gym, and focusing on basic movements like a simple hip hinge and things like that. And just through trial and error on my own, and just the growing love and interest I got in the field, eventually I got to a point when I was about 26, 27, where my body felt better than it had in a long, long time. And at that point, I was like, oh, this is amazing. And that's when I decided, okay, maybe this is where I want to bring my career. So I got those certifications you mentioned. And yeah, continue to help myself and as well as help other people live their best lives and get in shape. And that's where we're at now.
I love that you were presented with a challenge and you were in pain. And then because of that, you had to learn things. And now you have evolved to a place where you're taking what you've learned and you're making an impact and helping others with that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And like I'll say, and anyone who has dealt with any type of nagging pain or injury knows when you can't, and like doctors can't help you either figure out what the actual cause is, not just what the symptoms are, but what the cause is. It can be such a long, tedious, annoying road to fixing that. But because I not only dealt with the knee pain, but the shoulder, the hip, everything,
Wow. Yeah.
I just happen to know a bit more than the average person, I'll say. So it makes it easier for me to help someone cut that 15-year journey that I had
Mm.
down to much shorter. Some people, a few months. Some people, I've helped with a simple Instagram post to completely get out of pain, and then obviously some people will still take multiple years to get over what they're dealing with. But the most important thing, of course, is to not accept the pain for what it is and actually continue to try to fix it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would imagine that would be very frustrating and to be like, I just want to know what's wrong and how to fix it and then get that run around. So that's wonderful. You're able to really shorten that time span for your clients. So, what are tips that you have for our listeners today of how they can be healthy? I know you really specialize in when people are more in desk jobs. And I got to say, yeah, I was a classroom teacher for many years. There was not sitting was not a thing, right? I'd have like 10,000 steps by 2 p.m. without even trying. It just very busy. But then as my career evolved, I did have desk jobs, and now this is my first year kind of being based from home. And I got a little walking treadmill, and my desk has buttons and goes up different heights. So like I'm standing right now. But it's hard, and I've noticed when as I started sitting more, I do get lower back pain, and those
Mhm.
hips are really tightening. And so I know there's so many people out there struggling with things like this. So what tips do you have for them?
Yeah. So first, let me say too, like the whole that like slogan, "Sitting is the new smoking," like that's gotten massive. And so people, of course, it's always good not to sit. I think like people sit an average of somewhere between like 13 or 14 hours a day, which is crazy. But too much of anything is probably not good. So people that stand all day for work can also develop, the most common ones are foot pain as well as low back pain. Um, so yeah, just to make that clear, because a lot of people think, oh, you just don't want to sit, but you don't want to stand for 16 or 14 hours a day either, because you'll probably end up with some type of issue with that. But yeah, for the desk jockeys, as some people like to call them, which is obviously more people than not nowadays. Um, the simplest answer is, of course, just move more. And then obviously people are like, oh, well, I know, of course, but how do I do that? And so I like to look at it in different levels. And the first most basic level that you can start with is, okay, let's say you can't, exercise, or you can't, take breaks, and maybe you're a teacher that sits all day for whatever reason, or maybe you're a truck driver and you can't simply, get up and move. The most basic level of quote unquote movement is just moving the way you're sitting. So for some people, that can look like literally setting an alarm, at least in the beginning, so you don't forget, every 10, 20, 30 minutes. And every time that alarm goes up, just simply switch the position in which you're sitting in. Because there's a big difference between sitting the normal way people sit, which is, with their legs bent, but of course lean forward, versus crossing one leg over the other and then leaning forward with the straight back, getting that good glute stretch. And then after 10 to 20 minutes, switch to the other leg being bent over. And then maybe you spend 10 minutes instead of sitting in a chair, kneeling at your desk in like a hip flexor stretch. And then, so just finding ways to move that sitting position. So, yeah, you might be sitting, but by switching up those positions that you're in, it's not quite as bad as being in that same, static position for um, hours on end. So that would be the level number one, just simply switch the ways that you're sitting. The next level is still setting those alarms 10, 20, 30 minutes, but rather than just switching your position, getting up and moving. And that can be on my Instagram and Facebook page. It's easier to find on Instagram, but I have a whole uh, highlighted story dedicated to mobility flows that take anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes to do. Um, I will say most of them you probably can't do in like work clothes. Some of them you may be able to, but yeah, and just so every time that alarm goes off, just even if it's only for a minute, just get up and move. Do some type of mobility. Just go for a quick walk. Do some jumping jacks next to your desk. But that, of course, is great in breaking up the sitting. So not only are you getting out of those positions, but now you're actually getting some movement in. So that would be number two. And then number three, and upwards is when we start to get into, okay, well, now let's look at your habits outside of work. Yeah, you can, get those 2 minute sessions in, 3 or 4 times an hour, but what are you doing outside of work to get movement in? And that's where I like to challenge people, because most people, you ask them and they'll say, oh, I don't have time to work out. And for me, I like to think of working out as movement. A lot of people hear workout, they think exercise, lifting weights. Anything that involves movement can be considered, working out. And then when you start to audit your schedule, you realize, oh, well, I come home from work, and for 30 minutes before I start dinner, I just relax on the couch. Where I get, maybe you don't want to do something crazy because you're burnt out from work, but instead of relaxing on the couch, maybe grab a foam roller or just stretch on the floor, get some type of blood flowing. Um, After work, maybe you sit on the couch and watch an hour of TV. Well, what if you took half of that hour and just went for a 30-minute walk outside? Or like how you have the treadmill so you can work at your desk, just get I have a walking treadmill in my living room. I can walk on that and watch TV.
Nice.
So, finding those ways to just auditing your schedule, and then looking at, okay, well, here I can get movement in here. When I wake up, I spend about 3 to 4 minutes doing some type of mobility work, usually for my feet and my back, but you could do anything there. So that's literally only 3 to 5 minutes right there. Get up 10 minutes earlier and do that. And then, of course, after that would be actual, exercising in a gym. But basically, with that lowest level, nobody really has an excuse of not to get some type of movement. And even if it's as simple as switching up your sitting positions.
Yeah, I like that. And I like how you use the word auditing your schedule, like really being intentional and looking at your schedule and finding those pockets of 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever exists in your schedule, and then using them very intentionally. That's great. Uh, so I sometimes when I sit, so one of my heights of my desk, I can sit on a ball. And so I do that a little bit, probably not as much as I should. And then when I'm sitting in my chair though, I really like to put one leg under, like, and I'm like, that's probably not great long term, like for my knee or anything. Any, I don't know, it just intuitively, I'm like, this probably isn't a great idea, but it's just so comfortable and it's natural and I keep doing it. So is that accurate? Is that not great? And I should stop doing that?
It can potentially lead to an imbalance. So, for example, I didn't realize it till I was in my 20s, but I always leaned on my left leg,
Mm,
and when I was standing, and as a result, now my left leg is stronger than my right leg, and if I fully lock out my legs, so my knees, my left leg is a little bit hyperextended. So
mm,
instead of like stopping where my right leg will, my left knee will go a little farther back, and that's just a result of however many years just always leaning on that leg. So um if you're sitting a certain way and doing that for hours on end, eventually you'll probably end up with some type of imbalance.
mm.
If it's for 30 minutes a day that you're doing it, it's probably not the biggest deal. But I always just like to, now I'm very, aware of how I do things. So I would notice I only brush my teeth with like one hand. I was like, what, that's probably, could potentially, even though it's only 2 minutes, could potentially lead to some type of imbalance. I'm a bit more anal with stuff like that. So now I try to use the other hand. And, we're never going to have perfect symmetrical bodies. So I don't want to freak people out of having to, switch up everything they're doing. But just the fact that you're aware of it is great, because the first step to, correcting anything, if it needs to be corrected, is that awareness. So the tip would be, maybe whatever you're doing, just switch it up and put the other leg under, or, just try to do it less if it's becoming an issue. But yeah, just having, like I said, having that awareness is uh, just massive for you. So it's probably less likely to end up being an actual issue that leads to some type of, ache, pain, injury, whatever it may be.
Nice. As you were saying, I was like, oh no, I'm leaning on my left leg. How am I gonna?
Yeah, yeah. Again, I don't want to freak people out. We all have imbalances in our body. Nobody has. I don't want to say nobody, but very few people have perfectly symmetrical bodies. It's just because we all have a dominant hand, we all have a dominant side. We're going to use that side more, and so there's going to be some type of imbalance. That doesn't automatically mean that there's going to be any problems. Um, but when you do something like I did, leaning on one leg for 10, 15, 20 years, it did ultimately lead to a situation where um, it's a bit problematic. But now that I'm aware of it, I can work on it, and it's been getting better.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for going down that bird walk with me there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so I know another thing that you kind of work with your clients on is like sleep hacks and healthy eating tips. So it's not just movement and just related to those desk jockeys. So what tips would you like to share in those kinds of realms?
Yeah. So first with the nutrition, and this actually kind of reminds me. So I think a lot of people I think they do it more so with doctors, because when I was growing up, I thought like doctors knew everything. They were the smartest people in the world. When you work with, there's a difference between a nutritionist and a registered dietitian. Registered dietitians are the ones that go through years of schooling and are much smarter than nutritionists like myself. But whether it's a nutritionist or a fitness trainer, we're not doctors. So like we can't do a lot of things. Like when I talk about pain, I'm not necessarily talking about an injury. Like if someone came to me with an injury, I would refer them to a doctor. If someone came to me that had some type of uh, health issue that they needed a specific diet for, I would send them to an RD. So I just say this because when I help people with nutrition, and even with fitness, to an extent, it's a lot about habit creation and not so much about specific diets to follow and so forth. So again, starting simple with the nutrition and finding some habits to follow is one. We'll just start with the obvious one: water. Drink your water, and then coming up with habits of how to drink your water. So some of the ones I like to give people are um, So I actually have a couple on my wrist now. You get some rubber bands. If however many water bottles you want to drink in a day, you have that many water bottles on your wrist. And as you drink one, you switch it over to the other wrist. And you started on the right side, all the rubber bands have to be on your left hand. Or you can go, if you're using the same water bottle, you can go wrist to water bottle, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Another one is buying the same amount of reusable water bottles that you want and just making sure they're all finished by the end of the day. So coming up with that habit that you want to drink more water, and then finding the solution to that habit. Okay, how am I going to get to that point? So that's something with water. Something with eating. Maybe somebody wants to cut down on what they're eating. Okay, well, how are we going to do that? Some of the simple habits are, one, you can just buy less food. Some people, one of the biggest issues I come across that people have is they say, oh, I have a terrible problem with snacking. I
Mhm.
have a bag of potato chips in my uh, closet. I say I'm only going to have a few, and then I blink and the whole bag's gone. And which is very, very common. Happens to me. Don't know how it happens. It just does. And so a solution to that is, okay, well, how do I snack less? Well, you can't snack on what you don't have.
Mm.
So instead of buying the king size bag of potato chips, maybe you buy the individual size bag. So then you open up the bag. Now you can say, okay, I'll have all of this. But then when that bag's empty, now there's no more to eat, unless obviously you go to get another individual size bag. But it's a lot easier to stop with that one bag rather than having all of them together in one bag. Hopefully that makes sense. I know I just said bag about 32 times. So that's one. Or if you're trying to lose weight, but you don't know what to eat and you get off track, you create weekly meal plan lists. So instead of just freestyling it every day, which then can lead to not as great decisions as they would if they were planned out, you just come up with an entire week of what you're going to eat on which days, and then okay, this is what I'm going to eat. Obviously, things like meal prepping or food prepping. I say both because meal prepping is when you prep each individual meal. Food prepping is just when you prep all the food and keep them in big containers. So
Mm.
doing things like that, it just makes it easier when you're taking the decision making out of what to eat. And so now you already have everything set up. It's just about maybe the timing of when you're going to eat it. So that's for nutrition. Before I go into sleep, do you have any questions about any of that or?
I like just really being intentional and having a plan, not just, being like, I'm just going to make good choices today. Well, what does that look like? Really defining that. Like, I'm going to drink X amount of water, and here's how I'm setting myself up for success. And like the meal planning, prepping, all that, just being very intentional with the plan and deciding in advance, I will eat this. I'm not buying this. So it's not even available when I get that, you know, because the habit's formed of it's this time and I go and grab my chips. Well,
Exactly.
we got to replace that with something.
Exactly. And just what you said at the beginning of that, saying, okay, yeah, I'm going to make good choices today. The vast majority of the quote unquote disciplined people in this world aren't, don't thrive off of motivation or just going off of discipline. Half of the discipline comes from putting themselves in positions to not just succeed, but also not to fail.
Mm.
So, if you work with your phone next to you, you're going to be way more likely to get distracted by going on your phone. The quote unquote super disciplined people put the phone in the other room. So now they don't have that temptation. So
Mm.
it's just tough to rely on motivation or rely on discipline that hasn't necessarily been there in the past to make good decisions. It's not that, you're any lesser or you're weak minded. It's just that you're not necessarily doing the things that other, once again, quote unquote, disciplined people do, which is just taking away that temptation. So I'm glad you said that. But yeah, and then for the sleep, um, I think my two biggest tips, at least that help for me, are one, having, which is probably the most common thing you hear, is having a nighttime routine or pre-bed
Mhm.
routine. When you don't have an actual bedtime, or even worse, if you don't have an actual anything set up before you go to bed, it's very easy to lose track of time, especially when you're watching TV or on your phone. And if you wanted to go to bed at 10, next thing you know, it's 11:30 because you've just watched the third episode of a show that you only plan on watching one. It's just very hard to keep that consistent schedule. And then when you're not going to bed at the same time, your body doesn't know what time is actually bedtime.
Mm.
So one day you might go to bed at 9 and you're not tired at all because you've been going to bed at 10:30, 11 the last few nights, or you want to go to bed at 11 one night, and because you've been going to bed a little earlier, now you're too tired, but you don't want to go to bed, so you stay up. So coming up with some type of pre-bedtime routine that you start at the same time every day, not only will that help you get some type of time consistent that you want to go to bed, but also it will just tell your brain, oh, okay, we're starting the time that we wind down. We know we're supposed to be going to sleep in 30 minutes, which sounds strange, but it actually works. Like that's how your body knows, okay, it's time to release melatonin and all that other sciencey stuff. So setting up that nighttime routine, and then a second one, which you sort of saw a glimpse of before I came downstairs because it was so dark in my room, avoiding these white/blue bright lights. In my bedroom, I have the red lights. So one simpler hack is to get the blue light blocking glasses a lot of people see, because you keep the blue light out of your eyes. Now your body knows it's time to go to bed. It can release that melatonin. And yeah, that just makes it a lot easier if you're going to be looking at screens. Something a lot of people don't know is our skin actually has a lot of the same photoreceptors that our eyes have. So even if you're wearing the
Oh,
blue light blocking glasses, my skin can be picking up on this light right now, which will also help keep, or I guess help keep me up, but that's not what we want. So that's why I have the red lights in my room. So I spend the last 20, 30 minutes of the night in my room. I don't have to worry about that. That's also one of the reasons why a lot of people will tend to be woken up, even if they just went to bed a few hours before, will be woken up by the sun, because the sun comes up. Yeah, like our eyes in a way can kind of see it, but our skin is getting that sun as well. So definitely the nighttime routine's a bit easier. Not that the red lights are hard to do, but I would also recommend that as one that's I guess a bit more unique when people
yeah.
hear about sleep recommendations.
Yeah. And is there anything special about red? Like, why is it red and not like purple or green or?
To be honest, I don't know the answer to that. I green and purple might be fine. Like there's just certain lights that have just different rays that are help keep us up. I don't know about green and purple lights, to be honest. So it's always possible. It's always just been red lights that I've seen. But yeah, that's something to look into if you want to, I guess, be a little more artistic and maybe throw in a red and a purple one and start mixing colors.
Man, do that and turn on some music. It'll be like a party. Like,
Yeah, because if you start flicking the lights on and off, you're like at a rave.
oh goodness. Um, so it seems like you're really you promote a lot of like habits and building that, you use the word discipline, but just like what you hit on earlier, like willpower is almost like a muscle, and it by the end of the day we're tired, right? And the decision making fatigue. So in the morning, we're kind of alert and we could do better, and then by the end of the day after work and all these decisions, and we've been with our willpower and not snacked and ate a healthy lunch and went for a walk, and now it's the evening and you just want to go into those automated habits that you've intentionally or unintentionally formed over probably years of time. Um, and so, any other tips you have kind of around the realm of habits?
Yeah. So my actual biggest tip would be to buy the book Atomic Habits
Mm.
by author James Clear. It is probably the number one personal development book I read. That was every single chapter was an actionable step you can take to creating habits. A lot of self-help books, personal development books will, out of the 200 pages, maybe 15 of them will actually be filled with something that is of substance and not just fillers. So Atomic Habits by James Clear is probably the best personal development book, and it's all about habits, of course. Um, and I guess one of the biggest takeaways from the book is a lot of people have heard different numbers thrown out, or of, oh, like you need to do something for 2 weeks or maybe 30 days or 60 days, whatever the number is, to create a habit. But what the book says is so true is you never really like a super permanent habit. So yeah, you can, work out after work for a month straight and think, okay, this habit's set. But then if you skip the gym for 1 or 2 weeks, now all of a sudden it's a lot easier to skip it the next week and the week after. So um, just always continuing to try to build that habit if you want to look at it, and just knowing no habit is super permanent. Like I've been brushing, I'm 30 years old. I've been brushing my teeth for not, I guess not 30. I don't know when I started brushing my teeth, but because I obviously have a morning routine just like most people, even if it's not intentional. And if
Mhm.
I like wake up at a certain time, or do something different, every now and then I'll realize like a few hours later, oh wow, like I didn't brush my teeth this morning. Like I
Oh, yeah.
totally forgot. And that's something I've been doing for years and years in the morning. So it just goes to show that as much as we are creatures of habit, that can also quickly be changed when you don't follow the normal habits that you've been developing, whether it's for a month or for years and years and years.
Yeah, I could see that, especially if something in your schedule was different or your environment was different, like if you're traveling or, yeah, that could throw off a lot of things. Something you said reminded me. So my dad's a big runner and he loves running and he's like jokes that he's addicted to running. It just makes him feel good. But then he says the only thing more addicting than running is not running. And
Yeah.
he's like, if I go 2 days without running, all of a sudden I'm like, well, that actually kind of felt nice to rest. Maybe I want one more day of rest. And so I always
Yeah.
found that funny when he
Yeah.
would
With
say that.
exercise, it's one of those funny things where if you are a habitual exerciser, and especially when you first start, like it feels great, like you feel awesome. But then if like you might have that one day, you're like, oh, I don't really want to do it. And then like that can turn into a few days. And if you skip and you just sit on the couch and eat some ice cream, you're like, oh man, like this is nice. But then you also realize after doing that for a few days or a week, as long as you've been exercising for, a long time, it starts to go the other way. And you're like, oh,
Mhm.
like I love doing this, but I also realize not exercising and doing this is also making me feel like crap. So it's funny. It's almost like a pendulum where you stop and then you feel great, and then it's like, oh wait, no, I'm starting to feel bad again, and then I got to go back.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Oh goodness. So I like to ask all of my guests if they have any daily non-negotiables, and I have a feeling you do.
Yeah. This is actually funny because I think about a lot of this stuff on my own, just throughout the day. And I was thinking about this maybe like a month ago, and I would have to put quotes around daily non-negotiables, because other than like breathing, eating, and drinking water, I don't think there's anything specific that I have literally never missed in my life. But the
Mhm.
closest things to non-negotiables are, one, of course, exercising. And that's again just movement. It's not always lifting weights, but getting an exercise. I would say doing some type of breath work, whether that's meditation or a few of the other kinds that I've just discovered over the years. I won't get into that. And then if I had one more non-negotiable, I'd say the closest thing I do to every day is, before I go to bed, just think of two of the highlights of my day to kind of end it on a good note. So in case I'm having like a bad night or something, at least you end it with two bright spots. So those are probably my three closest things to non-negotiables.
Awesome. I love that. I just work with my clients a lot on it's not necessarily the big giant thing that makes, moves the needle and gives you the progress. It's those little tiny things that you intentionally set up and do. And yes, allow yourself grace. Life happens. There's no sense in beating yourself up if one of the days you don't get your breath work in or whatever it is. But yeah. So I like when other people share because like breath work's not something that's a part of my routine yet. So that's not something I talk about. So my
Mhm.
audience now could be like, oh, I want to know more about this breath work. Um, and so where can people connect with you? I know you mentioned Instagram and I put that link in there, but tell us a little bit about what it's called because it's not just your name.
Mhm. Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, but Instagram is the go-to. So if you have Instagram, I would recommend finding me there. But it's my company name, which is Healthy Movement Blueprint. So you just type that in. Hopefully, it comes up because it should, and then shoot me a message. And anyone that messages me, I always do my best to find a couple pieces of content I've made that can help them with whatever need that they have, or if I haven't made any content, either make it in the future or just try to help them with my words on the spot. So, but yeah, if you search Healthy Moving Blueprint on TikTok as well, if you're there and not Instagram, it'll come up. Facebook, I do have a Facebook group for Healthy Moving Blueprint, but also my name, Boomer Perrault, is where I post more often on Facebook. So, yeah,
Excellent.
so you can find me.
Yeah, we'll get all those linked in the show notes. And then you have an article about the best sleeping positions for those that wake up with pain or discomfort. So tell us a little bit about that, and I'll get everyone the link to that as well.
Yeah. So obviously, there's plenty of people out there who just have back pain in general, but a lot of people that wake up with back pain in the morning. So that's just something I've learned about over the years is different positions that can help you avoid back pain if that's the cause of the way you're sleeping. So I just have a pretty straightforward article. I'm not the greatest writer, so I keep them short and just whatever the point is I'm trying to get to. And I just have a quick, detailed description as well as pictures of how to sleep, whether you're a side sleeper, back sleeper, or stomach sleeper, and the best ways for it to help primarily with back pain, low back pain, but most of those are ideal for pretty much anything, and probably the way most people should be sleeping, whether on their stomach, back, or side. So,
Nice. Is there a like recommended way to sleep, or is everybody just geared to sleep the way that they're going to sleep? And then there's better ways to do that in that position?
uh, I would say side or back sleeping is probably ideal. Some people do sleep on their stomach and never have any issues, but it's just very hard to sleep on your stomach and not have your head and neck in an awkward position because
Mhm.
if you're lying down, especially if the pillow is, thick, but even if you're not using a pillow, you still have your head, cranked all the way to the side, which can, really cause people to wake up, with that funky neck and shoulder feeling where now they feel like they can't move at all. So, if you have to sleep on your stomach, that's why I have that in there. But I think sleeping on your back or on your side is ultimately the way to go.
Perfect. Side sleeper. So I'm like,
Yeah,
yes,
there you
awesome.
go.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing. Is there anything else that you want to leave the audience with?
Uh, the biggest takeaway is just if you're not moving, move. I think for whatever reason, it's become very normalized in our society to not get any type of exercise or movement in throughout our days. And I think if just people focus on getting, even if it's just 10 to 20 minutes of movement a day, prioritizing getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and just making slightly better nutrition choices than they are, a lot of people would realize how much better they feel. So just do a little bit for each of those three categories, and see if it works for you.
Awesome. Well, this has been really good tips, and I hope everybody got a lot out of it. I will be sure to get anything we talked about linked, including the Atomic Habits book. And so go reach out, connect with Boomer, check out his article. You also have a Google form that people can fill out if they want to work with you. Can you talk a little bit about that? And I'll link that as well.
Yeah, if people want to work with me, I have, as you just said, the form where I just ask some basic general questions of what your goals are, any possible issues you have, health related, the typical stuff you'd find. And then if someone fills that out, we schedule a time to chat on a Zoom call like this. And I try to give some type of value on the call, but as well as explain my whole coaching process and see if that is something of interest to you.
That's great. I think that's really powerful when people can connect on kind of a complimentary call and just see, is this a good fit? Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for providing that to the community.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Boomer, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us live tonight. If you got value out of this episode, we just ask that you share the love. Go ahead, share it in some way to anyone that you think might benefit from it. Also, leaving podcast reviews are always so very appreciated. And you can quickly and easily leave a review from any device by going to ratethispodcast.com/Khalil. That's CALYL for Create a Life You Love. I'll get that linked as well. And if you have not already saved your seat yet for the Purpose and Impact Bootcamp, it is officially kicking off April 25th. It is April 19th, so that's like around the corner. So I'm so excited. This is the free 4-day boot camp that we do about every 8 weeks. And this time it's really designed and tailored to help purpose-driven coaches multiply their impact, attract aligned clients, and design their dream life of freedom and impact. So if you're ready to just ditch those cookie cutter strategies that have you leave you feeling stuck and overwhelmed and burnt out, come join us. Register for the Purpose and Impact Bootcamp. Again, it's free. So I'll get that linked as well. Next week, we will be chatting with Shakia Meyer. She's going to be sharing with us about how to create a manifestation mindset. And so you can find us here in the Create a Life You Love community or on your favorite podcasting platform. Same time, same place next Tuesday. All right, everybody, enjoy the journey. Thank you for listening to the Create a Life You Love podcast. I would love to hear from you about your biggest takeaways. Share them with me on Facebook or Instagram at Create a Life You Love Coaching. If you love this podcast, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. That's it for now. Enjoy the journey.